morning, sir. A few topics that I thought I'll discuss. Those are some of the topics, sir. Interrelated ones. You had asked me to talk about structural racism, but then there are the other variants also, starting from the individual too. So all these topics which we are now talking about, I am trying to give you a basic idea about them and what all topics have to go into them. In most of the literature, what we find is systemic racism and structural racism, they are used synonymously. But then we will see. When we talk about structural racism, it is not in a general sense that people think high of themselves or the ethnocentrism kind of things. It is not so simple. But then in structural racism, there are established ways across the social, political, legal, economic spheres where the society at large would practice racism. I repeat what I said. When we say structural racism or systematic racism, what we mean is what are the various mechanisms through which a society tries to practice racism. It is not a theoretical concept, but what we find in a day-to-day life in a culture. It goes across different spheres, whether that can be political, economic, etc. What I mean by that is, based on the race identification, people will have different opportunities, and the opportunities are well laid out. It may be from a very small thing such as compartments reserved for the white populations or jobs reserved for the white populations. When we say that, so the opportunities are laid out, disadvantages are laid out, and I mean it's like different colonies being constructed, the kind of apartheid which we talk about, this whole thing, it is not simply an academic construct, but it is something that people try to exhibit in every walk of life, which is an advancement over biological categories. And what one has to remember is how is the structural racism practiced across different culture groups. This is a culture specific thing. Meaning the kind of racism we found in Southern Africa, the apartheid of Southern Africa was very much different from the caste based inequality that we find in Indian society, or maybe sect based inequality in the Persian society, or maybe when we talk about linguistic kind of an affinity in Scottish region. So there are differences across different culture groups. Different parameters are used systematically to eliminate people from certain opportunities and give certain opportunities to the people. What one can see is, in the case of systematic or systemic racism, systemic racism can be seen as a part of structural racism. Systemic racism is a part of structural racism. What I mean is, it refers to establishment of institutions. Systemic racism is establishment of institutions in order to follow racism. Is the mic okay? I repeat. Systemic racism is a part of structural racism. What I mean by that is, there are well laid out institutions that have this responsibility of making laws related to execution of racism. Meaning, in the systemic racism, there is a higher emphasis to legal mechanisms. It is not in any social sphere randomly, but it is properly laid out, maybe based on a constitutional mechanism. Certain organizations are established in order to punish, in order to encourage kind of things. I hope it is clear. Is it clear? The two terms.
So here you have mentioned the laying out of the opportunities for the ones who are okay. So is it a negative phenomenon of giving them opportunity, or is it a positive?
Giving opportunities for a few. I am not saying that giving opportunities for the people who are disadvantaged. I am not talking about that. I am talking about giving opportunities to people who are better off. Meaning,
Advantage of the disadvantaged groups, is it that?
Maybe when you are thinking in terms of welfare state. We should not go to that. When I say laying down opportunities, you might be in the back of your mind thinking that we are talking about certain reservations. No, that is not the thing here. We are talking about an unequal society. In such an unequal society, opportunities, benefits, resources are there for certain people who are elitistic, and lesser opportunities for the people who are disadvantaged. Now, once this kind of a structural racism gets established in a society over a period of time, maybe perhaps because of the kind of changes that are emerging, new systems emerging, whether through democracy or welfare state, etc., the later generations might think of making it an egalitarian society where you are trying to give the opportunities to the downtrodden. So this process is to clearly establish inequality. It establishes inequality, and it's also the same when we say systemic inequality, systemic racism. We can give the example of the Nazi Germany, where a very well laid out, whether you call armed forces, whether you call courts, where rules are laid out in such a way that across the race marriages are forbidden, across the race any kind of contacts are forbidden, forget about the opportunities, etc. But then the kind of slavery that is reserved for a lot of other races, irrespective of whether they are white or not, because you are opposite to me, you are not me, I am trying to do that. I hope you understand. In the first case, there is a higher and lower. In the second case, irrespective of it is higher or lower, you are trying to establish institutions so that whatever your lot is, you try to protect them. You try to bring inequality vis-a-vis the others. You understand? Yesterday we were speaking about this. तो बेल्जियम का था. If you recall the establishment of Poland, initially that was called polkas, and then wars happen, wars with Germans happen, wars with Russia happen, and this particular country gets into the wars from all the sides, and the city of Warsaw thoroughly destroyed, leaving only tens of 10 or hundreds of people hiding in the hideouts. Rest of them thoroughly physically eliminated by all means. When we are talking about this, institutions at that time were established by the Germans, by the Soviets, in order to see to it that whatever their enemy group is, I am using the word loosely enemy, they are basically trying to eliminate the other races. I mean, if at all you go home and see how the the country of Poland was treated, everything that was of Polish culture, that was eliminated systematically, all the art forms, all the museums, everything possible, that was brought to dust. When this had happened, this means that irrespective of whether you are superior or they are inferior, even if both of you belong to some kind of prestigious races or groups, you do not want the other people to continue to exist. And that is where you are establishing institutions in order to eliminate them. Am I there? So that is systemic racism. And those examples really do good. I mean, the European examples of how institutions are established, that holds good. But then right now, when we look at the other things, individual racism is like, in spite of the fact that there are institutions established, there are social practices that are there. In the individual racism, occasionally what we find is the authorities would try to distinguish one from the other up to the level of a single individual. I repeat what I said. See, overall disadvantages, overall policies are different. Sometimes what might happen is, in spite of the disadvantages that are faced by a community, certain people from them emerge. You understand? Certain people from there emerge. Yesterday we got a message, I mean, one of our friends who comes from scheduled tribe group. He had been working in revenue service, income tax, and then really struggling hard. The boy who came from a bonded labor background, and this boy now is selected. I think he belongs to 2010 batch, 12 years. Now he is selected for a prestigious assignment in Japan for 3 years. So he is going to be employed as a representative of Government of India in Japan for 3 years. I mean, that's what we were trying to talk. He was saying that, for the last couple of years I was trying, but I was not getting this chance. Now I got it. And the only thing he was saying was that this way of working, I mean, I was trying to talk about what he was doing, how he was doing. So he was making a mention, it is very important, not for me, but people who come from a background similar to us, that we give a confidence to them that we can also do stuff, we can also achieve places. When I am saying this, I am talking about a highly disadvantaged group, that disadvantaged group which did not have basic amenities to live in. From such an economic stature, he actually moved on to such a stage where the entire world is looking at it. One statement he made, I was understanding the depth of it. He says, though you recognize, he was saying, though you recognize the hard work that I am putting, or like me several others are putting in order to reach these places, for others it looks like it's easy for you, and I mean, for you people it is fine. But then I was making a mention, it is not based on the so-called reservation that he is reaching there. He got into service in general merit, and then he made it through all this on his sheer hard work, and nobody else was doing. People, once they are into service, they are taking a back seat, luxurious life and happily, kind of. But these people, when they are working hard to reach out those places, I mean, that's where they are establishing precedences. And that's how things are. I was asking him to come and see our students before he takes on that assignment and all, so that the people who come from the downtrodden sections of the society, they get motivated that these things can be done. So at an individual level, when I am saying this, systematically there are institutions, structurally there are socio-economic various other procedures laid out. In spite of all these odds, there would be certain individuals who rise up from the occasion and they try to go up the ladder. And in such a case, all these systems would suddenly wake up. All these systems would suddenly wake up in order to use all the might to deal with that single individual, to suppress that individual. You understand? That is at the level of individual. So the society entirely and all the socio-economic systems coming together to eliminate any possible usage of the opportunities by individuals, by single individuals. So pinpointedly, it's a very particular way of executing racism. You understand, it's not a general rule, it's particularly, sometimes it happens, there may be several moratoriums, but then the authorities are always behind one person, because if at all you cut off this person, rest of the community will also not think of growing up. That is stooping down to individual racism. You got it? All these are opposite to what anthropologically we look for, that is racial equity. I am sure if people do not listen to what we have said just now, things like that, the discussion like this, you would end up writing what you think is a structure, what you think is a race, and adding ism to it. And they segmentize and then deal with it. If you can't deal with one single thing as a bunch, you segment and then you deal with them separately. There are few other things that people had spoken about yesterday. She asked about adaptive radiation. One question that came to my mind when she asked adaptive radiation, what if the examiner asks adaptive radiation among the humans? This question I had given, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and what people do is, you put a hand there, this disappears, you write an answer for this. Most often you get this in the books and hence you eliminate this, redefine the question conveniently and try to write on adaptive radiation. In the biological sciences, questions like adaptive radiation among mammals kind of things appear, but in the case of anthropology we find adaptive radiation in the humans. We'll see what we'll write. There may be an ancestral species. An ancestral species over a period of time. I mean, this is a fast emergence. An ancestral species quickly gets into different lineages. Quick is of course a relative word, sir. That may be a few generations, countable generations, maybe tens of years, only tens of years and not more than that. So a species that can actually multiply itself into different subspecies, and for this the best study that we quote is the Darwinian study of the birds in the Galapagos and all other islands there, where he could find out that within a few years a faster change was happening in the significant features of the birds, such as the beak. Beak was something that has interested him the most, and the color of the feathers. And he was also trying to look at how usage of wings was happening. and how the legs were getting the webbed digits. Out of all this, especially he was interested in one, that is the beaks, two, that is the skin, the feather colors, and thirdly the usage of the wings. It looks very interesting when he writes whether wings are basically to fly or for what other purpose. Is it that they are to give warmth to the body? Though they were actually to give warmth to the body, are they trying to fly and use it for a function that is not actually assigned for them? Or is it flying is the basic function? Some flightless birds are there. They do not fly, only maybe a few meters, few yards. They do not fly, but they use the wings for various other purposes, such as giving themselves warmth and then kind of laying of, hatching of the eggs kind of things. This is one other story that he writes, but what he is more interested in is when ecosystem, the food availability, they change, the species in certain cases evolve so fast and they get adapted to the newer climatic conditions. So, species are getting adapted to the new climatic conditions and newer variants are coming up. And when it comes to humans and adaptive radiation, what is observed is that we have seen in our discussions that it took about 3 million years for the brain size to reach where we are, maybe from about 600 cc to about 1200 1300 cc. From early Australo to now, it took not less than 3 million years, which is a huge amount of time. And that kind of a speciation, faster speciation in the humans is rarity to occur. And what we find, this is what we take the discussion from. What they believe is that humans, even if they are getting adapted, their adaptation is altogether on a different lines. There are physiological adaptations and cultural adaptations. Because we have this cultural element for V's, our adaptation most often begins with cultural adaptation and maybe occasionally ends with cultural adaptation itself. And hence, if at all the examiner asks adaptive radiation in the humans, you will at the outset itself mention that it is so whatever thinkers' names that you can remember at that time. Even Dobzhansky was writing about it. If from the pure biological background, if you want to take the name of a person, Dobzhansky makes it very clear that for humans, adaptive radiation doesn't apply. And the reasons, as were explained by Miller and Weiss. This is a concept that can be used for various other life forms, but not in the case of humans. In fact, Dobzhansky was trying to work on varieties of plants also. See, suddenly a mountain terrain emerges in a plain region. In that plains region, there are certain varieties of flowers that were existing, flower giving plants. And then because of the folds and fault mountains emerging, etc. After some time, he sees that altogether different flowering plants were found on two sides of the mountain. And this was happening at a faster pace, multiplication of varieties of them. So, these are the conventional examples. Are you there? And one generic question, sir. I had answered this earlier also. Suppose there is any fossil we are considering from different regions. In your case, you are asking about Narmadaman, and various other variants are the regional variants. And what if I get a question like that? If Narmadaman is the question, what will I write? So, I will try to give a structure. This is a redoing of the topic, but who he was. These are all basic facts. Who found, where, when. You won't write why, but so then what was found? Meaning, what constituted the specimen? Based on which the phylogeny is written. When you are writing phylogeny, if only general evolutionary pictures are there for that particular species, you will do the same. Like, habilis based model could be there, linear evolution model kind of things, the models you are actually mentioning. But suppose there is a recognition of regional variants as subspecies. Say in this case we have for Homo erectus regional variants are there, maybe ergaster is there or heidelbergensis is there. When we have those varieties, show them. Sir, for everything you don't start with 5-6 million years ago. ప్రతి క్వశ్చన్కి అది అలా ఉండదు అనమాట. నేను నేర్చుకొచ్చాను, నేను ఇక్కడి నుంచే మొదలెడతాను అంటే రాజుగారికి ఆరుగురు భార్య దగ్గర నుంచి మొదలెడితే కష్టం. ప్రతిసారి అట్లా వెళ్ళొద్దు. Wherever there is necessity, you try to pick up from there. If astrology is the question, you will have to write. Now, in that sense, you may perhaps start with anamensis. Astralo-anamensis onwards, you can use the pictures in order to show where exactly different species are. Now, after mentioning this, the core of your answer comes here, that is based on the specimen's description, whether the conclusions are valid. Whether the conclusions are valid and what are the arguments. Sir, you will have to begin your answer with certain decorations, such as Narmada fossil has been significant for India. In what ways it is significant? In what ways it is significant? Because it is one of the very few fossil evidences that we find in Indian subcontinent, and that's how the importance of Narmada man is. But then there are arguments. I mean, this is how the entire question, whenever we are speaking about any regional variant, subspecies of a fossil man comes up. Like in this particular case, we only have the upper part of the skull. From the upper part of the skull, is it really possible to write the entire story? Are we trying to correlate? Sometimes what happens is a small bio evidence may be there, biofact may be there. We try to compare. So there are different regions. There are different regions across the world. In one region, say there are biofacts, there are also artifacts and various other things. And because of this, because of biofacts and artifacts, you get a picture. Now in a region 2, you only have artifacts. When you have only artifacts, you might try to compare these two. Similar artifacts are there, so might be possible that same fossil man might have done. And in certain other cases, artifact is there, but biofacts that are very, very feeble appear, and it may be difficult for establishing the biofact itself. So till the Narmada fossil came, that Narmada region was region 2 only, it only had artifacts. But once we got that evidence, that was a very feeble evidence. In fact, it was only the exercise of our archaeologists that they have given such an importance to that evidence. But otherwise, given Indian circumstances, such a small evidence would be very easy to get washed off along with several other things. But then we gave it an importance. Now what happens is, this small biofact that we are finding, we try to extrapolate the information, comparing it with the R1. So we try to, so the basis is your artifacts. Based on that, you are trying to run a story. That becomes the criticism there. What exactly one should be writing if the question is synthetic theory? There is nothing like a synthetic theory. People call it synthetic theory, modern synthetic theory, etc. There is no one theory that is called a synthetic theory. What happens is, when we start from pre-Darwinian ideas to Darwinian ideas, after him several things have happened. In other words, after him one major element, one major development was getting into molecular genetics. So that is where molecular genetics emerged in a big way, and DNA studies have emerged. These DNA studies, when they got to apply in various fields, all these developments in the post-Darwinian phase, they are put together as synthetic theory. I repeat what I said. There is no single theory which can be called a synthetic theory. It is a combination of several concepts, I don't call them theories, a combination of several concepts and applications of the field of genetics. And these developments that have happened in the post-Darwinian times. So as we know, at the time when he was writing based on the morphological features, the physiological features of the organisms that he was studying. He was trying to focus more on how nature is trying to select, so obvious visible things he was trying to look at. But then from the point of view of genotype, he is not writing. Genotype is something that was largely hidden in the discussions at that time. But once the DNA structure came into picture and people started to work on it, the genetic engineering and related corrections started happening. All those concepts that came after Darwinian ideas, this whole lot of thing is called synthetic theory. So to be more precise, what you would be writing there is applications in genetic engineering such as genetic recombination, creation of the individuals such as clones, applications in the fields of eugenics, applications in handling genetic based abnormalities, fields such as population genetics. So most of the books, if you observe, they try to highlight population genetics in order to explain synthetic theory. I repeat, sir. All those developments post-Darwin, that is fields related to applications of molecular genetics and DNA related information, the knowledge related to genotypes, wherever it is applied, all those applications and concepts put together, we call them synthetic theory. So it all depends on how much, what is the marks that is awarded to you. Based on that, you would try to give the explanations of them. Though in most of the books, population genetics is the one that is covered under synthetic theory. You may perhaps start with that. You may start with population genetics, rest of the things you can. So all those ideas of isolation, or migration, etc. They are seen as a major application within synthetic theory. ठीक है. Somebody had asked about sacred groves. I'll give an idea of that. We have spoken about sacred groves along with D.N. Majumdar, how he was trying to link it with the clan-based affinities. It is also something we see in the protection of particular varieties of life forms, ancestral worship and ancestral protection kind of things. So, if we see the current Indian or global populations, etc., within India we have several hundreds of sites that are declared as sacred groves based on tribal cultures. Huge number of them we find in the northeastern region, a very few left out in central India, and a feeble number of them we find in the regions of Tamil Nadu and southern Kerala. The basic purpose of these is preserve and protect. So, for that culture group, it is to preserve and protect their clan elders and to maintain that sustainable living along with the ecosystem. So here most of your explanation comes into picture. Secondly, now is like, it is a it's like we can say that it's something like an eye wash, that some kind of concessions and privileges are being given to certain populations, because in the context of a huge ethnocide that is happening, some bit of consideration, if one is giving to the groups to retain their own sacred regions, that works as a positive disposition towards them. It is in that sense. But most of our discussion actually is related to that. I mean, how they got established and how, based on culture contact, various mechanisms have worked against the sacred groves. Things like forest policies or huge developmental programs, projects, etc. When they have physically eliminated the sacred groves, and that's how in the case of tribes like the Bhils, tribes like Gonds, the retaliation moves have happened because of losing of the sacred groves of them. On the other hand, if we see the northeastern region, we still find certain regions that are still being worked out, still continuing as the sacred entities. I made a mention of this in one of our classes, that we still have this practice whenever they are going into the regions where they are growing. ఏమంటారు దాన్ని, పాన్ కే పత్తే, when you grow beetle leaf అంటారు కదా, when you grow beetle, those regions you are not supposed to enter just like that. You have to take a sacred bath and you have to observe all the rituals before you go there. It's a different story. As you are chewing beetle, now what happens to your teeth and mouth, that's a different story. But then before getting into that particular field, you have to observe all blah blah blah. Or were they?
Where do you see anthropology
In Anna?
where do you see anthropology in a subdiscipline social sciences?
Now that so similar question was asked, anthropology as a part of other social sciences. Because you are writing anthropology paper, you should definitely boast of. Global universities are there that have been doing real work in anthropology. We may actually not find so much in Indian case, as we know what ails anthropology kind of. But when it comes here, this is the youngest social science, considered to be youngest social science. But then the one that has come with renewed rigor, new concepts, new ways of working. Though it is a very young social science, it tried to focus on the most ancient of the humans, the unlettered societies. So when cultures are fast changing, humans are racing towards modernity and post-modernity. In the process, when we are losing track of our civilization, etc., this is a discipline that has the ability to make us know what we are losing, and maybe it can indulge with us to guide about how we can protect and preserve it. And other things also. I mean, it uses, people look at it from a negative perspective. It uses a huge variety of concepts and content from different other disciplines in order to make us known much better any human society whatsoever. So we have seen economic anthropology, political anthropology, blah blah blah. When we see so many things, all these are things like that you might have borrowed from various other disciplines, and then you are trying to build a foundation on that. So that's so young discipline, but still అంటే లేట్గా వచ్చాము అయినా కూడా కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఎ థింగ్. మిమ్మల్ని ఏమనలేదు బాబు, ప్లీజ్ అమ్మో అసలే నేను అంటే ఆంథ్రోపాలజీ లేట్గా వచ్చింది అయినా కూడా ఇట్ హ్యాడ్ డన్ సో మచ్ విచ్ అదర్ సోషల్ సైన్సెస్ డిడ్ నాట్ డూ ఇన్ టర్మ్స్ ఆఫ్ కంటెంట్, ఇన్ టర్మ్స్ ఆఫ్ మెథడాలజీ. और बताइए, హ్యాపీయా? మీ ఆనందమే మాకు కావాలి. Developing? Yes, speed. That's the speed. And that itself becomes an arguable thing also. How quick is the thing? Everything in simple society is not simple. Do you agree? You don't agree? Don't know. In what context we used that? Everything in simple societies is not simple. In terms of economic distributions, we have mentioned how complex the Kung-Bushman distributions have been. Meaning, we are looking at the intercultural and intracultural relationships, how the social institutions are functioning. I give you some random examples, like in the rites of passage. Rites of passage, we have come across certain instances where people undergo very difficult, physically mutilating kind of practices, where you are subject to so much of pain and ordeal while you are going from one generation, one phase of life to the other. I mean, it is not so simple. In your case, maybe that అన్నప్రాసన అనగానే ఓ చిన్న ఫెస్టివల్ చేసుకుంటున్నారు, అక్షరాభ్యాసం అనగానే బాసర వెళ్తున్నారు, రాపిచ్చేసుకుంటున్నారు, వచ్చేస్తున్నారు, లేదంటే మీ స్కూల్లో మీ వాళ్ళు చేస్తున్నారు, And then it's no big deal going from one phase of life to the other. So much so that marriage is also a very simple thing for us, and divorce is much more simple thing for us. It's in that sense. The intricacy, I mean the kind of, if I can use the word, the kind of thick description that is involved in terms of guides, the kind of thick description that is involved, the stakes that are involved are much deeper in the simple society than complex society. So before you take a decision, you have so much of consultation, so much of deliberation that you do. It is in that sense everything in simple societies is not simple. Generally that is based on census, two things that are considered. One is how in census we are trying to take samples. So basically we are translating that into applications of statistical methods. One major thing that we find in the discipline is use of sampling methods. Second thing is data collection and trying to find out the averages in the population. So it is in that sense, I will make a note so that I mean board మీద రాస్తేనే మనం రాస్తాం కాబట్టి I'll write the question. We have that essay written by these two people, Mahalanobis and D.N. Majumdar. We may actually look into that. Otherwise, I will try sharing. There he talks about the statistical methods and applications of anthropology in census kind of things. So in the statistical methods in anthropology, there are two things. One is sampling methods. Second one is statistical data collection. This is one of them, of course. Processing and conclusions. When we say sampling methods, you can tell me where all we came across these. Sampling methods. Ma? Culture, personality. Go ahead. Where? Child growth studies or go ahead, give the example. Where else? Enanna? Yeah, somatotypes. Sheldon somatotypes. One more. क्या था? What is the word that we use? We don't call it pedigree, something else. Genealogical method. Reverse genealogy. Genealogical method. So these are some examples where we found the usage of sampling methods. Each of them are a different entity, sir. In different social contexts, in different psychological contexts they are used. This is one. What is the amount of sample that you are collecting, how you are working on it. Second thing is using various other statistical formulae or principles in order to find out what may be a better volume. Here we are speaking about a sample, but then here we are trying to argue, especially in the context such as census, what may be a better volume from where data has to be collected. Once you have collected the data, how exactly you are processing the data. Now that anthropologists are using Now that anthropologists are using data, using the processing methods, high speed processing methods, supercomputers they are using, because the kind of volume that they are getting is much bigger when compared to the previous times, where a few hundreds, thousands, etc. alone they used to collect. So, I mean, it is especially useful in the case of various censuses, comparative censuses, kind of things. And you may perhaps use this from anthropometry, where conclusions are made, averages are made. What kind of averages, whether you are giving all population average, or you are trying to segregate the population into segments and trying to give the averages, kind of things. Census is in a beautiful handwriting.
Archaeology, social culture, physical science. At least the question answer ఎట్లా
Branches or sub branches, sub branches, whatever. I leave introduction to you. A proper definition you would give. You give the methodologies used, research methodologies used. Content itself comes as the scope. Modifications in the scope. Sir, if out of the 4 fields one comes, your popular way of writing can be, it is one of the 4 field study of anthropology as was suggested by R.C. Brown, I mean Bowes. I mean that becomes your standard first statement. దాన్ని మీరు ఇష్టమైనట్టుగా మార్చుకోండి, because everybody should not write like that. I repeat, if the question is based on the 4 fields alone, then it can be, it's a part of the 4 field anthropology. But otherwise, if at all the subcategories are given, like prehistoric archaeology, then it would be like it is a segment within a major other discipline. Like, you know, we spoke about ecological adaptation or medical anthropology. When we are speaking of smaller segment within the bigger one, we will have to make a picture that, see, in a larger field of anthropology, this particular field or subfield comes in this particular place. And in your descriptions, suppose the question is on 4-fold anthropological divisions, then you would write the basic content and then what kind of linkages it has with the others, how it is a holistic thing as per Bowes. You cannot single out any of them to understand the human culture. The holistic element, the integrationist element has to come in. But then if smaller segments are asked from a 4-fold study, in that case you will have to give a comparison, like, you know, how a medical anthropology is different from physical anthropology, or in what variants, in what depth that particular segment actually deals with the human element. And you will have to talk about how modifications and current things, if in that particular area any contemporary schools have emerged, like we spoke of, suppose socio-cultural anthropology, we have Facebook anthropology, kind of things, cyborg anthropology. So the newer versions also you can talk about. Leave with some application, in the recent past. Yes, sir.
Social anthropology versus cultural anthropology.
We spoke of this anytime, social anthropology versus cultural anthropology. Who calls it social anthropology, who calls it cultural anthropology?
cultural and social Britain and cultural anthropology was by boys in America.
So
And
what
later,
nationality?
degree they both, and anthropology is only, then they combined this socio-cultural anthropology.
Mostly in India we use socio-cultural anthropology. So national differences. You would start your answer by saying that in Indian context it is applied as socio-cultural anthropology, but then there are nationwide differences. In America it is cultural anthropology, in USA it is, in Britain it is social anthropology. And how exactly it is, that is linked to the basic ideology, ideas of those respective thinkers. And when it comes to anthropology, culture forms the core of the discipline. And hence, even if somebody is social anthropologist, the focus by default has to be on the cultural realm. So the inseparability of society and culture has to be understood, and that is appreciable in Indian context. మన గొప్ప చెప్పుకొని మనం అట్లా. Anything else? People started walking in south. So those 4 or 5. So out of Africa theory, if you are beginning, it is talking about whether human ancestors have emerged from Africa. If at all they had emerged from Africa, at what point of time in the archaeological past that arrival had happened. That is the inquiry. And there you will describe the 4 or 5 major arguments. And you would conclude by saying that, in the contemporary times, how the migration of human populations is much faster when compared to the previous ones, and then it is hence inconclusive that at what point of time exactly the migration might have started. Religion itself is a dysfunction. I was actually looking at your syllabus as something from where questions can come. It is from that perspective I have discussed the entire syllabus. But I do not want to rule out your question, send you with a dissatisfaction that నేను ఒకటి అడిగాను ఇవిడు చెప్పలేదు ఇవిడికి రాదు అని మీరు అనుకుంటారు కాబట్టి నేను చెబుతాను. I will tell. You tell me what are the dysfunctions of religion. Five dysfunctions, one from each block. ఇక్కడ నుంచి మొదలెడదాం. Dysfunction of religion. Religion curbs freedom. Marriage curbs freedom. Family curbs freedom. ఏమ్మా కమ్యూనలిజం. నేను సెంటెన్స్ కోసం వెయిట్ చేయట్లే, నేను రాసేసుకుంటున్నా. ఓకే, కమ్యూనలిజం. అమ్మా దీనికి దానికి సరే రాసుకుంటాను. యాంటై సెక్యులరిజం. और बताइए. Against rationalism. ఇంకా చెప్పండి. అక్కడి నుంచి పెద్ద పరిచయం లేదండి, హనుమంతుని గుండె చూడడమే. చెప్పండి. బోలో సార్. అమ్మా breeds ethnocentrism. और बताइए. promotes superstition. Conservative అదేగా అన్నది. కాన్జర్వేటివ్ అది కొంచెం ముదిరితే సూపర్స్టిషన్. అండ్ ఏమన్నారు? రాడికలిజమా? చెప్పు సార్. అదే అన్నమాట. కొంచెం అది ఫిలసాఫికల్ వేలో వెళ్తుందమ్మా. ఐ విల్ వర్క్ ఆన్ దిస్ అండ్ గివ్, బికాజ్ ఐ కెనాట్ గివ్ ర్యాండమ్లీ people from theological perspective. I have to give examples from anthropology only. But then see, when you talk about dysfunctions, especially in the context of religion, it comes as a, one is either it is anti-religion itself, meaning that you are trying to write on the topic, you are approaching the topic totally opposite to it. Second is that, are you trying to say that segments within the religion, meaning different religions, how they are operating with one another. So there are different levels there. Within the same religion, master annar freedom potundi. Within the religion. Within the religion, what is happening to the individual. Then across the religions, when two religions are there, what kind of an inter-religious relationship they are having. You spoke about ethnocentrism. And then somebody said rationalism for an individual, for a group, whether it is a rationalistic thought that is being given up, or is it that you are being thrown into the superstitions, etc. This, I mean, these are different levels altogether. So from the individual level to group level, inter-religious level, and at the highest level, no, I don't want anything, entire religious realm itself is something that is antagonistic to human existence, let us call it off, kind of a thing. So that ends up into theism and atheism kind of an argument. Those list of thinkers I will give you. అది నేను పంపిస్తాను. But otherwise, in your case, I don't expect that question. అంత లేదు. Examiner won't take a risk with God. కాన్సెప్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ పవర్ వాడు ఏదో రాశాడు కానీ సిలబస్లో అట్లా కొన్ని పదాలు యు ఆర్ నాట్ సపోజ్ టు లిఫ్ట్ దెమ్ వెర్బాటమ్. But in this context, when we say power in the cultural context is something to do with certain parameters. You remember we spoke about, I repeat sir, the question gentleman is asking is power, that is parameters of power or conceptualization of power. In anthropological context, conceptualization of power is based on several criteria. One could be gender. We spoke enough of it. No? You remember ఒక స్టేట్మెంట్ నేను అన్నాను, మీరు దాన్ని కాంట్రవర్సీగా తీసుకోలేదు, వీళ్ళు చెప్పాల్సిన కాంట్రవర్సీగా. ఐ టోల్డ్ దట్ ఓన్లీ ఎ ఫ్యూ జెండర్స్, ఉన్నవే రెండు, ఓన్లీ ఎ ఫ్యూ జెండర్స్ ఆర్ బెటర్ ఎక్విప్డ్ టు హ్యాండిల్ పవర్ ఇన్ ఎ బెటర్ వే than the others. అది ఎవరు అనేది దట్స్ యువర్ టేక్. సో జెండర్ వైజ్ conceptualization of power. Age wise, there you talk about TIV of Nigeria, how the powers are distributed, etc. And then power in the context of state and stateless societies in comparison with others, how the state is capturing the stateless power, etc. And the sources of power, the sources may be how in the modern times and how in the ancient times, or simple and complex societies, sources of power, whether it is tradition or oral histories, written histories, constitutional writings, kind of things. Ee nalugu, that may be conceptualization of power in the discipline of anthropology. Acha, there are few things that I had to tell you. Yesterday somebody had asked that now itself we would want to start writing the exam. So we are not actually halting your portal because some are there who are not writing prelim, and that will continue to be there, I think June 23rd, I don't know what particular date. So those of you who are not writing prelim this year, you start taking up the tests, so that my load post prelim will also be less. Post prelim everybody will be in a hurry, everybody wants their scripts in a day or two, so my load will also reduce. You people finish your tests now. Prelims, whoever is writing after the prelim, you can. So by the time you open your portal, the tests will already be there, you can, you know. And basically there are certain announcements to be made, but before that I must say, which I already said to you many times, that your batch has been very, very special in the sense that non-speaking batch, silent batch. You are somebody who are extremely silent. I mean, that's incredible for me. So In that sense, your batch is very, very special. So all the talking I only had done. Uh, I might have hence rarely appreciated you, or maybe I might have occasionally abused you, yeah, occasionally abused you, or maybe perhaps I might have let out, ventilated my all other anguish on you people. And if at all you think that I had touched a wrong nerve in you, I am extremely sorry on that. So, sir, after this for day by day, 3 sessions will be uploaded. Huh? Those are the Q&A sessions, sir, from the last season. Last season kada neglect cheyakandi. You sit and write down those questions. And 2 things basically. One for the people who are writing prelim this time, one for the people who are writing in the future, next year, or next year, or next year, whatever, or next generation, because we have students just passed out from 12th grade and joined civil services coaching along with the first year of graduation. So these are the people who are going to write exam in the next generation. So for these people, there are 2 lot of people. మీకోసం నేను స్లైడ్స్ కూడా తెచ్చుకున్నా. This is for the people who are writing prelim this time. You can remember those dates coming from the next Sunday, 14th, 21st and 28th. Sunday 10 o'clock you come, write your test and go. Take your key also along with that. Write the test, don't simply take and go. Mostly that's what you do. Fold chesi. So kind of this is one. So few things, that is a complimentary thing for you people. And those of you who have still not done the ribbon cutting of your books, somebody said we still did not open it. Open cheyakandi, nenu ostanu. I will come. We will have a small treat, and I'll do the honor. I'll cut the ribbon, open the books, hand over to you, and then kind of. So for you people especially, you will have to open the books, you will have to download the things. I was really, really happy. I mean, whoever have met me, except I think one student. The rest of them, I mean, the way you have written, I am really, really happy. I felt unnecessarily I scolded, but then fine, it's okay, I scolded. I scolded and hence kind of 4 books, 5 books. Somebody was saying 1200 pages I have written. 1200 pages handwritten notes still going on, kind of. And then beautifully you have taken the printouts of all the soft copies. And some of you have already arranged them class wise, topic wise. After the last class you wanted to go in for a spiral. చేసి జాగ్రత్త పెట్టుకోండి, అటు ఇటు పాడేయకండి, తర్వాత ఎవడో వచ్చి ఎత్తుకుపోతాడు. సో కైండ్ ఆఫ్ బీ వెరీ వెరీ. అండ్ దెన్ షీ వాజ్ మెన్షనింగ్ ద అదర్ డే, మంచిగా చెప్తాను, మంచిగా చెబుతాను. So when she got the books, she was telling that it feels like a school that I am getting so many books. I mean, it's a compliment, like, you know, sometimes you'll have to carry all of them to show to the rest of the world. See, so much we are writing in the class. 1200 pages it seems. And so, sir, if you are writing this year, we have some more things to give to you. There are 2 or 3 dedicated things for the people who are writing prelim in 2022, sir. This is one. I mean, whatever program that you are choosing, that should be after you finish the existing one. Don't leave it unfinished and try to take up the next one. First, apne jo question papers hai usko complete kar lo. This is the Anthro Enhanced program. That is my cute looking fellow. We call him Zeus. That Zeus, he is talking about Anthro Enhanced. This is a test series consisting of 10 question papers for the current year. It starts, I think, the date Epudama 7th of July somewhere, 7th of July I guess. We are giving enough of time of 1 month for you to go revise your things, and then every week the rest will be there, especially for the students who are writing mains this year. This is one for you. For you, this is one more. I mean, this we anyway share with everybody, but it will be of special importance for you because ultimately you are going to focus on them. June and July we will release the list. Irrespective of whether you are writing this year or next year, you try to finish writing, learning, and you have this third thing to come up. I love you running, Anthro Run. I love the way I name the programs. Nakishtam to coin the names, Anthro Run, to remove your anthro hurdles. Kind of. Those are the 3 dates, sir. 13, 14 and 15. You will not forget. Just before, and our people will constantly disturb you. Pingutane untaru. Ding ding. So until the day you tell them, see, we are not writing. There is nobody in our family who is writing. In the next 2 generations also we don't have anybody. We don't have any friends who is writing. Then they will remove. Otherwise they will constantly disturb you. Because they are paid for that. No? Kind of. So, I mean, this is real run, sir. Though I mentioned there 50 plus areas, it reaches 80 easily. When 50 I write, that those are the major areas. There will be sub components therein. It will be good for the students who finish their entire preparation once. It's the last leg basically. September you are having the exam. So 1 month of time is there. Last time when we had done, we did it very close to the exam, 10, 12 days before the exam. Then I felt that based on the response I got, students didn't have much time to go back and study certain things or revise certain things, new things if I am talking about, they are not able to incorporate in those 10, 12 days. So I thought I'll do it a little early in the program. So what we would do is, we'll finish off June and July, we release the important areas, you would be working on the important areas, and after that we would do this thing so that you would have a proper closing of. And sir, one other thing that students had asked, now we are closing this course, so what we should do from now? ఇంకా అయిపోయింది కదా, ఆటక మీద పెట్టేసి ఎప్పుడు దింపాలి, అంటే అప్పటిదాకా ఏమన్నా బుక్స్ లీజ్కి ఇవ్వచ్చా, కైండ్ ఆఫ్ అదే కదా అడిగింది మీరందరూ. సో లీజ్కి ఇవ్వద్దు కానీ ఐ విల్ టెల్ యూ, టైమ్ జస్ట్ ఫ్లైస్ ఆఫ్ సార్. It's not simply weeks and months, but years also fly off just like that. UPSC is known for it. Those of you who might have entered this field 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, you know it pretty well. You still think that you are in the first year of preparation, you have already finished 5 years. That's incredible. And you have already seen the neighboring children were calling you Bhaiya, now they are calling you uncle. And you suddenly look at the mirror, graying of the hair is happening, not on the head but in the beard also. So kind of, you have reached a time when you will have to work more closely with the subject, kind of. So isliye, even if you are writing in 2023, you have to continue your preparation of your general studies, your optional. Now that I will tell you the time division, etc. This time 11 to 2, you got used to taking rest in the class, 11 to 2. You continue with this exercise in the future also, with anthro only. Anthro books ke saath hi rehna, nobody else, no other subject. You have dedicated the time to the subject, you continue with that dedication. ठीक है. So that may be 2 hours, but then 2 to 3 hours of time you give, at least the 3 hours of time till you finish all your backlogs. That would take a solid 2 months for you. You still have to do your duty. I did my duty. You have to do your duty. So dedicate this time, 3 to 4 hours of time, to continuing these 2 months. Finish your assignments, finish your tests, and everything possible, so that you are confident that you have visited each page of your notes at least once in your preparation. Once you do that, then you can gradually reduce the time. But every day 2 hours of time you give to your optional till March of the next year, that is 2023. You might be wondering, what will I study every day? You will start, you will know. If you start, you will know, right? What will you study every day? And if at all you people want any help in laying out the sequence of things, what to study, how to study, and things like that, you can get your notes and all. We can sit across and talk about it. I'll try to help out based on which are your favorite areas, which are your difficult areas, how much time we can give, kind of things I can help you out. Don't hesitate, sir. We always have this principle that once a student, always a student. So that is one. And that's so, I mean, personalized timeline, because you see, you are asking, we don't know how to approach, and that's more personalized kind of a thing. We have to sit with you, what content you have finished, which subjects you have finished, where exactly you are lagging, and all that. Based on that, I will try to help you out. And couple of others, sir. 2 other programs I actually hold. These are the, I mean, that's not me. Yeah. 2023, suppose you are writing the exam next year. For you, we would have that 1 year long program. 1 year long program where it consists of about 40 tests. I mean, it will be like you are writing, and writing. By the time you go to the exam, it's like writing your slip test only, because you have written the questions many times, you have revised them. So that kind of a comfort you should actually get, like how in your intermediate you used to study, right? Rutherford experiment, first unit test, second unit test, quarterly, half yearly, annually. Ade anamata. Same. You are reading the same thing. I mean, but then when I give the questions, even if I gave the same question, I would change the format of it. Definitely, we would change the terms, etc., so that you try to respond in a different way every time. So this is one. And if at all you think that అబ్బా నా వల్ల కాదు, నేను అంత రాయలేను, కొంచెం తక్కువ రాస్తా, I don't want 40 tests, ఎవడు రాస్తారబ్బా అంత అని మీరు అనుకుంటే, this consists of a little less, about 30 tests. These are all weekly programs, sir. We give you a detailed sequence of things to go, which chapters will be covered. So it's not like, suppose you are taking this post prelim for the main examination, the Anthro enhanced program, that's a heavy one rather, meaning each paper will be 250 marks, and then we have sectional tests, and majority of them comprehensive tests. I see that students will not be able to take so much of load immediately after the course, because you will have to internalize the whole thing. And that is where these programs will help you. Long term anthropology test series, I fondly call it lattice, because there was some reason why I named it like that. So this is one. And you can also climb that thing. You can also climb. Some people are studying, you can also study. This is one, especially for people who are writing mains this time. This is a general studies writing program. Dates are there. If you are interested, you can perhaps go through that particular thing. So from 3rd July to 8th September, what all tests are there, how many marks each of them will be, and from any kind of handouts will be given to on particular topics. All these things you can actually interact with me when you find time, you get interested, and things like that. But don't forget, writing is very important. All these months that we were here in the class, you were writing. I don't remember who, but somebody said my hand is still aching after 3 months of writing also. How is your hand? Your hand is good. Now you got used to writing, right? है ना? So the next few days, when the classes are not there, start writing in that 3 to in those 3 hours, 11 to 2. Write whatever comes to your mind. Take up a question from the subject. Write what you feel good, what you feel like writing, and later बाद में देखेंगे. जो लिखना है लिखो. Your hand should not lose that habit of writing. I spoke of hand memory sometime. So your hand should not forget things. Of all the things, it should not forget to write. तो लिखिएगा. That is very very important. So immediately, sir, you have to look out for one, that is your test program. Anthro का जो test program है, we are going to give the dates etc. on your portal. You would write them. And you'll finish watching the Q&A sessions, the 3 sessions, every day 1 session. We are going to start from this Monday, and keep uploading. Whenever there's a requirement, you give a call, you take an appointment, come over, we will discuss whatever things are, your scripts and whatever. And as far as your GS is concerned, if you are writing prelim, you avail the 3 tests that are going to be there. Suppose you are leaving, you just leave your number, your email ID, whatsoever, they will WhatsApp or do whatever, but you will receive a question paper along with the key explanation, that is what. And then be present on the 10th of this month for a Google Meet on how we are going to do the mentorship program. Well, my basic concern is that see, when I push you through in an optional subject, my push is equally required for the other part of your syllabus. You might be studying subject anywhere from whichever source. You might be doing your self study. You might be taking somebody else guidance coaching program whatsoever. But then in order to lay down a particular way, in order to keep you confident that somebody is there to push you through the exams, the syllabus completion, and kuch log ho jo daante, that's very important. I know you'll miss my scoldings, but